first ever PFL Europe event.
Yes.
First thing I want to talk to you about is Lewis McGrillen. The guy is a superstar in the making. You recognise that. You said he was your one to watch this week. I've been working with him for a while. Everyone in Manchester has seen his superstar quality. What do you make of him?
I mean, he delivered tonight. You know, the most impressive thing is he's a 22-year-old kid, he's undefeated, and he stepped in there with big pressure on his shoulders. He was taking on someone that's got double the pro experience, and he took him out. And the thing is, you know, because he hyped the fight up so much, he was moved up the card, right? He would have been third fight on the night, but because of the tension and the interest in the fight, he was bumped up. And, you know, you've got to think, Dakota and Simeon, they're well-versed in carrying these kind of events. There's a new experience for him to be on this kind of in this kind of limelight, and he just impressed everybody, didn't he? I mean, his composure, the moments he was landing his left hand, would have been quite easy for him to chase his opponent down and try and get the finish really fast, but he didn't. He let it breathe. He found his shots. It was very, very impressive. 7-0 now. The sky's the limit for the kid.
He said he met you when he was young. He said you couldn't remember it, but you won't forget him now. Just hearing a story like that, and, you know, watching someone perform like that on a world stage, then saying that you were sort of their hero growing up, what does it feel like for yourself?
That's news to me, but I mean, I've been punched in the head a lot, so I don't remember things on people. But, you know, the thing is, what he's got to realise is it's amazing for me to hear that, but he's going to have a much bigger stage than I ever had. And he's going to be the one that's inspiring the next generation. There are kids in this arena today that watched him and thought to themselves, I want to be in that position in a few years' time. So he's basically filled the spot that I was in for him during his career, and he's doing it at a lot better job than I am. You know what I mean? First round knockouts like that, it's going to inspire generations of kids.
How far do you see him going in the sport?
The sky's the limit, you know, as long as he's got his opportunities, and obviously with the PFL we'll try and produce some more opportunities for him, some more tougher opponents and some big feature bouts on cards, you know, for the rest of the year certainly. You know, we've got Berlin, Paris and then Dublin. I would like to see him on a couple of those shows at least, and I expect him to deliver again. And I think, you know, there's a lot of other tough fights out there for him. A lot of kids coming through the amateurs, through IMAF and stuff that eventually are going to be turning pro. This pool of talent in Europe is going to get bigger and bigger. We're going to go from 4 shows to 6 to 8 to 12. I want Europe to be one of the biggest places, the busiest places for mixed martial arts in the world. And
just with yourself as well, final one for me, embracing a new role as well, but I'm guessing you're itching to put on the gloves at some point with PFL. You know, the Super Fight League, that's there for tailor-made for you, and there's a pretty famous guy called Jake Paul who'd be pretty interested in a fight like that.
Well, you know, the reality is, yeah, of course, you know, he's a great promoter, he's a fantastic asset to the PFL, but he likes fighting old guys that like to strike, that have got no ground game. I'm the guy. Like, what's he going to get out of it? He's going to have a fist fight and he might knock me out. That's what he loves, you know. Who knows what's going to happen? I'll always throw my hat back in the cage for a fight. I love the adrenaline rush, and you know, when I see these guys walking out, I'm proud of them, but I'm a little bit envious. I would love to be in there as well. There's nothing like the adrenaline rush of putting somebody away in the first round, and you know, we saw a lot of that tonight, and that energy in the arena just gets me fired up. So we'll see. I might feel 40 years old again tomorrow, but right now I feel about 23 and I'm good to go.
Want to see it?
Yeah.
Dan, you mentioned him having a big stage, and how lucky are the fighters now that they have these kind of opportunities to perform at home on big cards, not realising that maybe in your time there was nothing like this?
You know, it's amazing. I mean, this was the problem when I was coming up, and to be honest, it's the same problem I hear all the time when I'm talking to these young fighters. You know, I'm traveling around gyms and I'm speaking to young prospects and stuff, and the issue is that, yeah, I've got a fight next weekend, but the guy's pulled out, he's been replaced by someone else, he's pulled out, now the event's been cancelled, they've moved my bout to another show up the road, and it's just a chaotic mess at the moment, mixed martial arts in this country, and what PFL will bring is stability. Like, all the fighters in this bracket, they know that they've got another 2 fights this year. As long as they win the next one, we'll move them on. And the opportunities are only going to keep growing. Like I said, 4 is the least amount of shows that we're going to do in Europe. And this is the first region that we're setting up a league. So after Europe, it's going to be part of the Middle East and South America. And each one of these leagues is going to feed into PFL Global, which means that the global standard of PFL is going to continue up. And you've got to look at who we've got already. You know, Sadibou C, Rob Wilkinson, Thiago Santos has just joined us. We've got Brendan Loughnane taking on Marlon Moraes. We're spoiled for talent already, but then you start throwing some Lewis McGrillans in 5 years' time in the top, and it's going to be a mess of excitement.
How quickly do you think you can grow?
We're growing so quickly. I mean, the news was announced last week, Wednesday, that I'm taking this job. We were at the UFC Fighter Hotel, and I'm standing at breakfast getting hash browns with people coming up to me going, "So PFL then?" Like, if you want, yeah. Like people that are under contract with other organisations that are keen to make the move over, because no one's putting $100,000 on the table in Europe for a prize, and that's not including the money that you get to fight anyway. It's not like you're fighting for free and you might get the 100,000. You still need to fight first, but the bonus at the end is 100,000, and potentially a ticket to PFL Global, which then you're in a $1 million bracket, and as Brendan Loughnane's shown, it's possible for anybody to grab that money.
So if you had a message to potential newcomers, fighters around the globe, what would it be? Why should they come over to PFL?
Because we'll keep you busy. We'll keep you busy. There's always going to be opponents. The other benefit in having a purse like $100,000 at the end is that there's always fighters that want to compete. If you've got someone that's promised 300 quid to fight, they might not show up. Right? I've had the same thing. I'm making 150, he's making 150. I don't know whether he's going to show up. It might cost him more to get there in fuel. $100,000 keeps people's attention. It will keep people in this tournament. And if one person drops out, they'll have a good reason and we'll replace him. Because that's the other thing that we're going to be doing. On these undercards, I'm going to have alternate bouts. You know, of course, we've got Lewis McGrillen as a feature bout, but I want these feature bouts to be more specific to the weight classes that we're seeing. So if we have a light heavyweight pull out, we've got someone we can move into the next bracket. You know, we had a fighter miss weight of the week, so we've got to move another fight to Berlin now. But it's exciting because I know we've got one fighter, I can find another prospect, and we're going to get a winner of that that's going to move through and fight one of the 3 flyweights that won tonight. It's just an exciting process to be a part of, and for me to be able to find fighters and plug them into it, I mean, I kind of feel like I'm made for this job.
You look like a page, bro.
As a pioneer of English mixed martial arts, what does it mean seeing this youthful British invasion that's coming along in the past year, couple of years, in all across the sport? PFL we've seen tonight, Manchester especially a hotspot. We've seen Liverpool in certain different organisations, Tom Aspinall as well. I mean, there's such a depth of talent in English mixed martial arts. What does it mean to you seeing how the sport's grown from when you were fighting to what it is now?
I don't think I could have imagined that MMA would grow like this. You know, Cage Warriors always did a great job of keeping consistent shows on in Europe, and I was fortunate enough to have a home with Cage Warriors, so they kept me relatively busy. But, you know, as mixed martial arts has grown, it seems like the consistency's dropped off. Like the UFC used to be here 2-3 times a year, every year in the UK. Now it's once a year, maybe twice a year. Like if I'm a local fighter, I want to be fighting in front of my hometown crowd on a big event. And PFL Europe is specific to Europe. You know, we're going to be doing shows here all the time consistently, and we're going to need loads and loads of fighters to fill these cards. I know this talent from watching the IMAFs, from watching the English team go over. We had 17 go over to the World Championships recently. Like, that's a handful of fighters that are going to be pro next year, that are going to be just as dangerous potentially as the people in the main events on these cards. It's just going to grow before our very eyes, and to be a little part of it, I'm honoured.
Thank you very much.
Dan, is that?
Sorry.
Fight
What do
for
you think the major organisations like PFL can do to really push MMA into the mainstream in the UK? Because I feel like it's easy for all of us as fans to try and trick ourselves into thinking it is a bit more mainstream than it is.
Yeah.
But what do you think we can do to get it on the level as football, boxing? Like what can we do to get it there?
It's accessibility, isn't it? You know, of course, we've got a great partnership with DAZN. We've got ITV are going to be putting out stuff as well. You know, it's accessible. The first couple of fights on the night were on YouTube. Anyone can watch them. Accessibility. People being able to watch these fights for free. The highlights spinning around the world on social media, and people thinking, oh, that's an interesting show. Looks like the UFC. I like the UFC. I'll have a look at PFL, and then the difference between the two: one's ultimate and one's professional. You know, one's fighting and one's fighters, right? And for me, professional fighters is always going to override, because it's the MO of the organisation. We're professional, we're about the fighters, and we're a league. That's the most important thing for me.
Dan, just in your new role, are we going to see a change in the recruitment strategy of the PFL? Is there anything specific that you want to come and input?
Yes, that's a good question. I mean, I'm very much in tune with the amateurs. You know, I'm a part of the board of directors for EMMA, and I know how much talent there is around the world. The IMAF have done a great job of showing us that talent and of giving amateur fighters a path to keep busy, fight against international talent. But at the end of each World Championships, we've got the top 3 seeds in the world from each weight class. I want to grab all of those people. It's going to be like, you know, it's going to be like people coming out of college ready to sign with the NFL, right? I want people coming out of the IMAFs, making their pro debut on PFL, on these shows, so you guys can see them and cover them and give them some love, because they've probably had 10, 15 fights already as amateurs, and they're ready to be pro.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All good.